So here's what sin is, right? Sin simply means to miss the mark. That's what it means. Sin means to miss the mark. And basically, the penalty for sin is death, is what the scriptures would say. And you're like, yo, that's so heavy, yo. Like, the penalty for is death. Yeah, but understand this. It's not death because God is mad at you and he's angry. It's death because God does not want to kill you. It's nothing like that. But because God is the creator and sustainer of life. And when you miss the mark and you begin to try to find life in things that cannot provide it, you die. Okay? And now this sin has passed along to us at our core all throughout generations of humanity, right? And so it's passed down and inherited from generation to generation to generation. It's not like what we do, it's who we are. And we all sense it. We don't like to talk about it. We don't want to own it. We want to pretend like it's not that big of a deal in us. You know what I'm saying? But we all know it's there. Like have you ever thought about this? Isn't it wild that one of the most common beliefs around everybody in the room and everybody on the globe is this right here? Nobody's perfect. Isn't that weird? Like, you know, you mess up, you're like, hey, nobody's perfect. You know what I'm saying? But I want you to think about it. That's a little weird. Hear me out. Why are we so quick to universally accept nobody's perfect? Why? Like, of the hundreds of billions of people that have walked the planet, how come we are all so convinced and clear, like, hey, nobody's perfect? Why? Because that joke is true. Like, y'all are jacked up. I'm jacked up. Nobody's perfect. There's a universal truth that this is absolutely true. Like, and here's the thing that hit me this week, right? If you ever meet somebody who doesn't think that they're jacked up, right? That's when you start to understand really how jacked up that person is. Right? And on the flip side, if you ever meet somebody who doesn't seem all that jacked up, that's when you start getting nervous about, man, how jacked up they must be to be able to hide the fact that they are jacked up like they are. That's kind of jacked up. Right? I would argue that our universal understanding of how jacked up we are is simply just evidence of the inherited nature of sin. Now, God says, all right, I'm going to fix this, bet. I'll fix this. I will fix this. And 2,000 years ago, God sends his son Christ, Jesus, born of a virgin. Hear me. No sinful generational seed in him. The one perfect man, the God-man, perfect in all of his ways, perfectly gracious, perfectly truthful, perfect in wisdom, perfect in love, perfect in justice, perfect in knowledge, perfect in power, perfect in speech, all for the purpose of defeating sin and death that kills. And he does it for all of us. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 describes it like this. It says, this is the Apostle Paul speaking. He says, for our sake, God would make him who knew no sin, Jesus, to be sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. In other words, since the penalty for sin is death, the only way for death to be defeated, right, is if there was one who had no sin and he paid for that sin, since he was the only one that had what it took to actually pay for it. See, you can't die for sin because it's your sin. And so if you die for your sin, that's deserved. But if one has no sin and dies for sin, that's payment. That's payment. And so he voluntarily dies the death that we deserve in our place for our sin. And since he had no sin in him, right, the penalty for sin then had no power over him. So then what happens when sin and death has no power over you? You rise.